welcome to our video on the revision of algebraic expressions. So there are a few things that you need to remember before we start. First, you need to remember that multiplication and division goes hand in hand, and addition and subtraction, they are also similar. You also need to know your integers. When you're multiplying negative numbers, when you multiply two negative numbers, you get a positive. When you multiply a negative and a positive, you get a negative. When you divide two negative numbers, you also get a positive. And when you divide a negative number and a positive number, you get a negative. When you have addition and subtraction only, you are going to take away the smallest number from the largest number, and you're going to keep the sign of the largest number. So here we have our variables. And before we can go ahead and add or minus, we have to ensure that we group our like terms, meaning that they should have the same variable, the same exact variable, and the same exact indices in order to do our calculation. So here I have 5. The first one I have 5x squared y minus 2x squared y. So the 2x squared y is a negative, so I put a negative here also. Then I have positive 3x squared and a positive 5x squared. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do my calculation. So I'm going to take away my coefficient. So 2 from 5, I'm going to be left with 3. So here I have 3x squared y, and then I have positive 3 plus positive 5, so I add both of them. That would be positive 8x squared. When you look at your variables, you can see that we can't go any further. Why? Because for this term, the variables are x squared and y. And for the second term, the variable is x squared. They are not the same exact variable for each term. So therefore, this is our answer. So we would just leave it like that. So you pay attention to your signs. So we're moving on to our second question. So the next thing that we're going to do, we are now going to check to see that our variables are the same, and we're going to identify the exact variables, and we're going to rearrange, right? So that is what we're going to do for our first step. We are going to rearrange, all right? So we can say rearrange, or we can say grouping. So I have my first term here, and this is 4ab squared c. I'm going to look to see if there's any similar variable, just the same. So I'm seeing positive 3. So positive 3ab squared c. And we have negative 2b squared. I want to check to see if there's any other b squared. Positive 7b squared. We have here a negative 2a squared b, and we have here negative 4a squared b. So we're now going to move on to our operation where we're going to add or we're going to subtract. So here we're going to calculate, right? So we have positive 3 and positive 4 here. So we know that 4 plus 3, that is 7ab squared c. And you have negative 2 and positive 7. You take away 2 from 7, you're going to get 5. Because the 7 is the largest number, it's going to be a positive 5b squared. And here we have negative 2 and the negative 4. When we have two negative numbers, we add both of them and we keep the sign. So 4 plus 2 would be 6, and it would be negative because we keep the sign, and it is negative a squared b. Based on the answer that we have here, it doesn't matter how it is rearranged, right? We could rearrange it in another way and still get the answer. So if another student has 5b squared, positive 7ab squared c, and negative 6a squared b, these two answers, they are the same. Right? And how we know that they are the same? Because each term, they have the same they have the, basically at the front, they have the same sign. So this is a -6, -6. We have a +5 here, we have a +5 here. We have a +7, we have a +7. So basically what is happening here, they have the same sign, so therefore they would have been correct. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next. So before we move on, when you're dealing with addition and subtraction, you add or subtract your coefficients, you take into consideration the signs you're working with, and you only add or subtract when they have the same exact variable. Okay, so for this question, from we look at it, we can see that this is a division question, right? And the rule is when we are dividing and we're working with indices, we're going to subtract our indices, right? So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to show you two methods in how you can basically go ahead and get your answer. So I'm going to start off with method 1. So here I have a -15x to the 4th y to the 3rd over 5x to the 2nd. So I'm just going to expand the information that I have above. So -15, I'm going to multiply x 4 times. And I use common x for my letter and regular x for my multiplication. And when you're doing this, you check to see that you have your correct number. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Draw a division bar. 5 times x times x. Now what we're going to do, we're going to cancel to see what we would get for our answer. So 5 into 5, 1. 5 into 15 goes 3 times. X into x1, x into x1, x into x1. So here I have a negative, so this is -3, and I have x, 2 of my x's, so x to the 2nd power. I have 3y, so I have y to the 3rd power, and this would be over 1, and anything over 1 gives you the same response, right? So our answer is -3x squared y to the 3rd. This is our answer. So now we're going to look at method 2. So for method 2, you could just subtract, right? So here where you have your 15, you have your -15, you know that you're going to divide that by 5, and you're going to get -3. Now you have your x to the 4th minus 2, because we have x to the 4th as the numerator and x to the 2nd as the denominator, so we minus, and now we have y to the 3rd. We're not taking away anything from that, so here we would have 2 from 4, that would be x to the 2nd and y to the 3rd. And if we're going to write our final answer, that would be -3 x to the 2nd power, y to the 3rd power. So based on what you're doing, you can use any of these methods, but please make sure that you show working out so you can get your full marks. And this is either way as it relates to showing working out. Okay, so our next question, I just wanted to know that the asterisk that I have there, it signifies multiplication. So if you're doing your test, and you should see asterisk, so you would know that it means multiplication so that it doesn't confuse you. So I'm going to rewrite. So I have 5m squared times -3n squared multiplied by -2m multiplied by mn to the 3rd. So basically that is what I have. So I'm going to use methods. So I'm going to use method 1. So first what I'm going to do, I'm just going to write out the coefficients only, multiplying them. So it's 5 times the -3. So these are the coefficients. Let me underline them. Times -2. And then I'm going to go ahead and multiply the variables. So m to the 2nd would be m times m, and then I have another m, and then another one. And then I have n to the 2nd, that would be 2, and then n to the 3rd, that would be 1, 2, 3. So 5 times negative 3, most students get confused when they have more than one negative numbers. What you're supposed to do, break it apart. So say 5 times negative 3, negative 15. Now you multiply your negative 15 by your negative 2. If you try to put everything together, you might get confused, right? So negative 15 times negative 2, that's going to give you a positive number, and that is positive 30. So here I have m. I'm going to count the amount of m's that I have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's m to the 4th power. Count the amount of n. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that would be n to the 5th power. And that's just using method 1. Another method that you can use, you can just go ahead and look at the indices, and we know that when we have our multiplication, we add our indices. So we would do the same thing by multiplying 5 times negative 3 times negative 2. So we would have times m. So we have m to the 2nd power, and then plus 1, because this m would be to the 1st, the next one would be to the 1st, so I have plus 1, because I can add my indices when we're doing multiplication. Then I have n raised to the 2nd power plus to the 3rd power. So again, positive 5 times negative 3, that is negative 15 times negative 2, and we get here positive 30. Now I have my m, so you can put your multiply. M, 2 plus 2, that is 4, times n to the 5th. No, you're not going to leave it like this. You're going to ensure that you have no multiplication, because we want to simplify, and we know that a number beside a variable means multiplication. So your final answer is 30, m to the 4th, n to the 5th, and it's the same answer we have above. So make sure that you use the method that you're comfortable with in order to get your full marks. Okay, so for this question, we have some signs here that we're going to navigate through. So I'm going to rewrite it based on how you should interpret the question. So here I can have my 3 here outside of the bracket, and this is saying 4x raised to the 2nd power, and then y raised to the 3rd power. So when we have a number outside of the bracket, it is basically saying to us that it is going to multiply every single thing that is within the bracket, right? So we can look at it as it relates to what is happening. So basically what it is saying here, it is saying 3 times 4, right? It is also saying 3 times x squared, and it is also saying 3 times y to the 3rd. And we know that when we have our brackets, it's basically signifying that we are going to multiply. So I have my 3, and the 3 is used to multiply every single term or number or variable that is in the bracket, right? So 3 times 4 is a positive 12. I'm going to put it in brackets because it signifies multiplication. 3 times x squared, that would be 3x squared. And 3 times y to the 3rd, that would be 3y to the 3rd. So now we have all this information here. So we know that we are multiplying each of them. So how do we do our multiplication? When we are doing our multiplication, we write our coefficients separately, and then we write our variables separately, okay? So here I have 12 times 3 times 3, and these are my coefficients. Now I'm going to write my variables. So I have coefficient and constant, a number by itself. I have x squared times y to the 3rd. So I can say 3 times 12. So here I have my 3 here. So I'm going to multiply. And here you can say to yourself. So here where I have my number, I can say 3 times 12 times 3, and that is going to give me a positive 108. times x to the second times y to the third. But remember, for algebraic expression, we don't use our multiplication for our final answer. We just write the number and the terms beside each other, and that signifies multiplication. So our answer is 108 x to the second power y to the third power. And this would be our answer. So you first use the number outside of the bracket to multiply every single thing inside of a bracket. Then you multiply your coefficients. After doing so, whatever variable you have, you're going to combine them together and you're going to write your final answer. And 108x squared y to the third is the final answer. Okay, so now we have another question and we have to rewrite it so it makes sense. So here you would have 6 r to the second power, and then you would have s raised to the fourth power, and we have 2 outside of a bracket. So again, we're going to use the number outside of a bracket to multiply every single thing within the bracket. So here I have 6 times 2, and I also have r squared times 2. I have s to the fourth power times 2. And now what I'm going to do to get my answer, 2 times 6 is 12. R squared times 2, that is 2r squared. We always have our coefficient in front of our variable. 2 times s4, that is 2, s to the fourth power. So now we're going to separate our numbers using the multiplication. So 12 times 2 times 2. And then as we move forward, we are also going to have times r to the second power times s to the fourth power. So here we have our 12 times our 2 times 2. So here we can say, okay then, 12 times 2, and that is going to give us 24. And 24 times 2, that is going to give us 48. So this would be 48 times r to the second times s to the fourth. So at the end of the day, our final answer is 48 r squared s to the fourth. How would you rearrange this, or how would you write this answer using the symbols above? So it would be 48 r 2, and then you have s 4. So that would be your answer if you are going to write it using the symbols. Okay, so this is our final question, and what I'm going to do here, I'm going to rewrite the information based on the symbols. So I know that this is 4x to the second power y, close bracket, times 3x raised to the third power y to the third, close bracket, times negative 2xy. So this is what I am working with. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and write out my coefficients. So I have 4 times 3 times negative 2 times x to the second power. This is x to the third, so I'm going to put plus 3. And this is x to the first, so I'm going to put plus 1. Times y to the first plus y to the third and y to the first. So now we're going to do our multiplication. 3 times 4 is positive 12. 12 times negative 2, that is equal to negative 24. And then we have here x raised to the 2 plus 3 plus 1, that is 6. And y raised to the 4, 5. So this is our answer, 24, x to the 6th power, y to the 5th. And you can rewrite it using your symbols. So if you're going to use your symbols, you would have Make sure you have your sign. Negative 24 x raised to the 6 y raised to the 5th power. And if you realize there's no space between my answers, right? So you make sure you type it just as it is. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope you have learned something. Go ahead, click the subscribe button below. Make one comment telling us how you felt about this video. Thank you and all the best on your exams.